Hi there, I'm Tony Lee, and this is Hot Flasher, your daily menopause podcast that serves up fresh news, research, and wellness tips. I've built a daily news pipeline to find the latest on women's health and menopause research. Allow me to introduce my co-host, Nikki, who handles the headlines. Take it away, Nikki.
Thanks, Tony. We've got a full one today. Let's get into it. I want to start with the hardest story first, because it deserves the most space. And it's the one I've been sitting with all week. A study published this month in PubMed, lead author Hendricks, August 2026, took a qualitative approach to something the research world has mostly danced around. What actually happens to women who become suicidal during menopause? And what does the care system do about it? The researchers didn't survey patients this time. They interviewed the people around them, clinicians and caregivers, and asked them to describe what they saw. What came back was a picture of a system that doesn't know where to put these women. The core finding is one that, if you've spent any time in the menopause space, you will not be surprised by, but that doesn't make it less important to say out loud. Care is fragmented. A GP might handle the hormone piece. A psychiatrist or therapist handles the mental health piece. And those two lanes almost never merge. So a woman who is in psychiatric crisis, partly because her sleep has collapsed, her estrogen has dropped, and she hasn't had a coherent medical explanation for any of it in 2 years, that woman falls between the cracks. Clinicians in the study described not feeling equipped to handle the menopause side of the mental health presentation. Caregivers described watching women spiral while different parts of the system pointed at each other. This matters because the link between the menopausal transition and increased mental health risk is not new. The research on this goes back years. We know the perimenopause window, which can stretch across several years before a woman's last period, is associated with higher rates of depression and, yes, suicidal ideation. The fluctuating hormones, the sleep disruption, the identity and body changes all layer on top of each other. For women with prior mental health history, the risk is compounded. For women without that history, it can still appear, seemingly out of nowhere, in a way that is genuinely disorienting. And yet, the clinical training on this is thin. The average GP gets roughly an hour of menopause education in medical school. That's not a rumour, that's documented. So when a woman shows up in distress, the system is often guessing. What I keep coming back to with this study is that it was designed specifically to ask clinicians and caregivers what they see, not what the guidelines say, not what the ideal pathway looks like on paper, what they actually observe in practice. And what they observe is disconnection between specialties, between symptom domains, between what women are experiencing and what the care system is built to address. If you are in a dark place right now, and I say this plainly, not as a disclaimer, please reach out to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. It's free, it's available around the clock, and it's there specifically for moments when everything feels like too much. You don't have to be in immediate danger to call. If things feel heavy and overwhelming, that's enough of a reason. Bone health is not the flashiest Friday topic, but stay with me, because this one has some real potential. A study published August 20th by Witt and colleagues looked at an enzyme in the blood called Xylosyltransferase-I, XTI for short. What this enzyme does is help build the structural scaffolding inside connective tissue, including bone. The question the researchers were asking: can measuring XTI levels in the blood tell us something useful about who is losing bone density after menopause? The short version, it might. XTI activity in blood serum tracked with bone thinning in postmenopausal women in a way that suggests it could eventually be used as an early warning signal. Before we get to a DEXA scan showing concerning results, XTI levels might already be telling a story. Now, and this is important, this is still early stage. Promising biomarker research doesn't automatically become a clinical test. There are questions to answer about how reliable this marker is across different women, different ages, different health backgrounds. It needs to be tested in larger groups, in different settings, before anyone's doctor starts ordering it routinely. But the reason I think it's worth paying attention to is the gap it's trying to fill. Bone thinning after menopause is common. Estrogen does a lot of work protecting bone density, and when it drops, bones can lose mass faster than most women realise until a fracture happens or a scan shows a problem. Current standard testing, DEXA scans, are good, but they're a snapshot. They show where you are, not necessarily where you're headed. A blood marker that could signal risk earlier, before significant loss has already occurred, would be genuinely useful. The things that do have solid evidence behind them for bone health in this life stage: resistance training, actual weight-bearing exercise, not just walking, adequate calcium and vitamin D, and for women who are candidates, hormone therapy. Those are the levers we know work. XTI is not a replacement for any of those. It's potentially a better early detection tool. Those are different things. The last item today is one I want to send you into the weekend, actually feeling something other than frustrated about, because this one is legitimately good news for the field. Published August 20th, lead author Tamariz Eleman. This is the protocol paper for something called the CHI-SO-DP study, Women in Healthy Transition Deep Phenotyping Cohort Study. Protocol papers can sound dry, but what they're describing here is the architecture for a study that could meaningfully change how we understand the menopausal transition. Here's why the design matters. Most menopause research to date has been cross-sectional, meaning researchers take a snapshot of a group of women at one point in time, compare the ones in menopause to the ones not in menopause, and draw conclusions. That's useful, but it has real limits. It can't tell you how an individual woman changes over time. It can't tell you what her biology looked like before her transition started, compared to during and after. CHI-SO-DP is longitudinal and within participant. That means they're following the same women across the entire menopausal transition, collecting biological data, psychological data, lifestyle data, repeatedly from the same people. So instead of comparing woman A to woman B, you're watching woman A become her own comparison point over time. That's a fundamentally more useful kind of data when you're trying to understand a transition, not just a state. Deep phenotyping is the phrase they use, and it means they're not just tracking one or two markers. They're building a detailed, multi-layered picture of each woman, hormones, yes, but also cardiovascular markers, cognitive function, sleep, mental health, physical capacity, and more. The goal is to understand the full picture of what changes during this transition and why some women have such different experiences than others. This is the kind of research the menopause field has needed for a long time, not because we have no data. We have a lot of data, but because so much of it is fragmented, partial, or based on designs that can't fully answer the questions women are actually asking. Questions like, why did my anxiety appear out of nowhere at 47 when I never had it before? Why does my friend sail through while I can barely function? What is actually happening in my body, and when? This study isn't going to produce answers next month. Longitudinal research takes time by definition. That's the whole point. But the questions being asked and the rigor of the design being used to ask them represent a real step forward. The menopause research world is finally starting to take the transition seriously as the complex, individual, multi-dimensional experience that women have been describing for decades. That's worth noting on a Friday. Thanks for spending the week with us. If Hot Flasher has been worth your time, hit subscribe wherever you listen. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss an episode. Have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday.
That's our week. Thanks for listening to Hot Flasher. We'll be back on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone.